Welcome back everybody to a new video about 10 creepy Reddit horror stories. They all claim to be true, but whether they are or not, I think you decide that on your own. Before we start with the video, I would really appreciate a like and follow to help me grow this channel. Let's begin. I've been seeing a lot of scary Reddit stories shared on TikTok and Instagram lately, and it finally made me feel brave enough to share something that happened to me when I was 16, living in my hometown in Australia. When I was 16, I got into my somewhat first serious relationship. He was my close friend's older brother, and their house was about a 10-minute walk from mine, if you were willing to cut through the stretch of bushland along a barely noticeable dirt road. My house sat directly across the street from the entrance to the bus track. One night, I was at my boyfriend's place watching a movie, and we both fell asleep. When we woke up, it was almost 11 p.m. His mom had a strict no sleepover rule, especially for partners. He walked me through the door, said goodbye, and that was it. Looking back now, I really think he should have offered me to walk me home. I was only 16 and it was late. I started down the street towards the bushland entrance. Going the long way around through the streets would have taken me over 20 minutes, while the bus track only took about 10. I'd used the shortcut plenty of times before, but usually during the day and rarely alone. It was a moonlit night, and I remember thinking the moon was unusually bright, honestly, one of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. The light filtered through the trees, so the bush wasn't in total darkness, which made me feel a bit better about not tripping. A steady breeze moved through the leaves. It was late September, and that kind of cool, windy night is pretty typical for an Australian spring. I was just over halfway down the dirt road when I noticed something strange. The breeze was still blowing. I could see the trees moving, but everything had gone completely silent. No insects, no rustling, no distant traffic, nothing. It was the kind of silence where you could hear a pin drop. I felt uneasy, but I kept walking. A few moments later, a heavy sinking feeling hit my guts so hard that I stopped dead in my tracks. I just stood there, staring straight ahead, when a sharp chill ran up my spine. It was hard to explain, but my body was screaming at me to run, while my brain was telling me to turn around. To this day, I wish I had just run. But my curiosity got the better of me. Slowly, with my breathing getting heavier, I turned my head. Standing meters behind me on the path was a tall, thin, dark figure. It didn't look like a normal shadow. It had shape, presence, and the only thing I could make out clearly was its eyes, glowing and locked directly onto me. My body instantly went into full fight or flight mode. I turned and sprinted down the dirt road toward my house. I wasn't thinking about anything except getting back to my street. Somewhere visible, somewhere safe, somewhere human. I don't even remember my feet hitting the ground. It felt like I flew. Jumped my back fence, rushed to my bedroom window, slid it open and climbed inside. That was the first time I stopped running. I turned to look behind me. There was nothing in the yard, nothing on the street, but I could still feel it, the horrible sensation of being watched. I barely slept that night. I only drifted off when the sky started to lighten. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The bedroom I was in originally been my older sister's. She'd moved to the front of the house for more space, and I took her old room. The window, that room never properly closed. I later found out it was because she used to sneak out at night and had damaged the latch so it could be opened from the outside. That's how I got in so quickly that night. A few nights later, I was asleep when I suddenly felt the energy in the room change. I jolted awake instantly, like my body sensed something before my brain did. My window was slightly opened. I knew I had shut it. I was still shaken from the other night, and I had double-checked it before bed. I got up slowly, walked over, and pushed it closed without even looking outside. I didn't want to see anything. I just wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. After that, the nightmare started. I kept dreaming that my window was opening while I slept, and that someone or something was trying to get in. The dreams were so vivid and frequent that I could barely sleep at night. Eventually, I could only get proper rest during the day. After a couple of weeks, I was desperate. I came up with an idea. If the window could slide open from the outside, I'd jam it. I found a piece of wood, the right size and weight, and ledged it along the window, so it physically couldn't move. I had my brother test it from outside. It wouldn't budge. After that, the window never opened again, but I never walked through the bushland ever again either. Not alone, not with friends, not even in daylight. I didn't want to tempt anything. Over the years, I've only told that story to a handful of people. One of them was my best friend and his partner, who is Aboriginal. When I described the figure I saw, the look on his face genuinely scared me. He told me he believed I might have encountered a Mokoi. In some Yolngu beliefs, a Mokoi is a malevolent spirit associated with death, illness and misfortune. It's said to lurk in dense bushlands at night. They're known to be stealthy, fast and often invisible, which made him say it was unusually that I saw it at all. He also said something that stayed with me ever since, that the darkness connected to a Mokai can follow a person long after their encounter, if they manage to escape. The way he said "if" made my stomach drop. I'm 30 now. I live an hour away from my hometown with my partner and our 2 dogs, but every now and then I still have that nightmare. I'm back at the bedroom, it's dark, the window starts to slide open, and I hear the soft thud of wood hitting the frame, as something tries to force its way inside. Even now, sometimes when I'm alone and it's dark, I feel that same shift in the air, that same heavy watchful presence. I don't know if it's just my brain replaying old fear, or if something from that night in that bush is still trying to find a way in. Oh boy, what a story. Imagine yourself in that position. The next one is called Long Story Time. I don't know who else experienced this, but there was this one night when my mom had to go to work at night shift, leaving me and my grandmother alone in the house. I was 16 years old at that time. My mom left probably at 8 p.m. after reminding me what to do before going to sleep. I was surfing through the internet that night, using my tablet with my wired earphones plugged in my ears. Then, about 30 minutes later, after she left, I heard my mother's voice outside the house, and I didn't respond right away because I was waiting for her to tell what she wanted while calling out my name from outside, while my earphones were still plugged in. Then a few seconds later, she's still calling out my name, so I stopped up from the bed and still did not answer her calls for my name, and looked outside the window, looking for the source of that noise. I saw no one, so I lied in my bed, again, plugged in my earphones and watched YouTube videos. A few minutes later, I heard her voice again calling out for me, without giving any order or telling me what she wanted. I was waiting for her tone to change, because I was purposefully ignoring her call, but even so, I stood up again and looked outside the window from my room, even extending half my body outside the window just to see the person calling my name. But there was still no one. I tried so hard to see some sort of sign that there was a person on the other side of the door, like feet, legs, clothing, but there was really nothing. So I decided to go downstairs, walking past my sleeping grandmother, who did not see to hear my mother's call for my name. She was a light sleeper. My grandmother would have called my name as well if she heard my mom calling for me. I opened the door without thinking that there might be a person that would attack, rob, prank, or like ding dong ditch me, except we don't have a doorbell. I opened the door and saw absolutely no one, literally nothing but darkness because, first, it was night time, and second, the neighbors next door were usually at each other's throat and yelling. I think they were at their vacation that time, and their lights were off, as well as the house next of them. I stepped outside the doorway just to double check, even though I clearly see no one at the door but myself, and observed the neighborhood from where I was standing. I noticed that there were some lights turned on near our block, but shrugged it off since there was nobody but myself. So I stepped inside the house and noticed the kitchen part of our house was dark. In order to turn on the kitchen light, I had to press a button on the bulb, but the bulb was inside our kitchen. I paid no mind that the kitchen was dark and didn't turn the light on because I was starting to have a heavy feeling. I got creeped out only because the kitchen light was off. The thing is that the kitchen was connected or was next to the bathroom, no hallway, kitchen, and then the bathroom door. The bathroom light was always off after use, so it was no big deal that it was dark, but having both the kitchen and the bathroom lights off is what gave me the creeps. Like someone or something was there waiting for someone to go to the kitchen that time. However, I just took a mental note and went back to my room, walking past my sleeping grandmother once again, plugged in my earphones, and surfed the internet on my bed. When I got back to my room, the realization hit me that I was not alert of my surroundings. I didn't think that someone with a weapon could be behind the door and kill me and my grandmother, all because I heard my mother's voice and thought about her. I also noticed that my mother's tone, while calling out my name, did not change as she kept calling for me from the outside or from wherever she was. She would have been pissed, thinking that I was deliberately ignoring her calls, and she would have yelled louder. I also noticed that the light at our block was off, although the lights in the next block were on. And all throughout the occurrence, I did not say a single word, so I don't really know what that was. All I know was that it was my mother's voice. I didn't think anyone or anything would mimic my mother's exact voice that night. I still don't, if it was a mimic or what. I don't know what a mimic looks like. This is my first time talking about that occurrence. I haven't told anybody about it. Even my mum doesn't know about it. If I told her, she would have scolded me for not being alert and just opening the door, just because I heard someone calling out my name. After that, nothing similar happened, and whenever someone calls my name in a crowd or alone, I don't answer or look at their direction right away. I wait for them to catch my attention by touching me or walking in my vision so I can see who called out for me. Does anyone want to share if they had a similar experience as me? What a story. And I think most of us know that feeling that sometimes you think you heard your name, but once you follow up, it really wasn't anything. So the next story is called My House is Weird. I've lived in this house for my whole life. I've experienced a lot of strange things in this house, and I've always been told I'm being paranoid and just scaring myself. The first time I heard something, I was 12. I had been sitting downstairs watching TV with my dogs. I was home alone, and it was the middle of the day, so I wasn't scared or paranoid. As I was watching TV, I heard a noise from upstairs, paused it, and realized it was footsteps. I immediately checked out to see who was home, but upon looking at everyone's location, no one was, and no one was even in their way home. Even though it creeped me out, I still went upstairs and checked all the rooms. However, I found nothing when I went upstairs and searched. I told my mum about it, and she said when she's home alone downstairs, she's heard the same. Everyone else put it down to the house noise or my cat walking around. My cat was lighter than a feather and didn't make a sound when she walked, and I could hear the floor creaking and the sound of feet pressing against the floor matching each creak. The sound started in the hallway above me and went towards all the bedrooms down to the end. I heard it a few more times after that, but never found anything. When I was around 14 or 15, I had been laying in bed one night, about to fall asleep. I did not have a fan or anything turned on in the room, so it was dead silent. Right as I was about to fall asleep, my brain picked up on something before I even knew what was happening. I stayed silent, just listening, and that's when I heard it. My bed is quite tall with nothing underneath it, leaving it as an open space. Near the edge of the bed's opposite side to me, I could hear breathing. It was extremely human-like breathing, and it went on for probably about an hour before the room got quiet again. I soon fell asleep, brushing it off as my imagination or an animal, but it still makes me shiver to this day just thinking about it. April last year, me and my sister-in-law were home alone. My parents and sister had gone away for the weekend, and my brother was out with his friends. Me and my sister-in-law decided to have a few drinks, do each other's makeup and vlog. As we are just joking around the video recording, there's an extremely loud bang. The bang was coming from outside at the garage door, and it's almost like someone was trying to pull it up and then started banging on it. We first immediately froze, and then I got up after 30 seconds and went to the front door to see what it was about, who was out there, but there was literally nothing. We checked the whole house, nothing had fallen over, no animals, and my dogs were at the fence barking. My parents checked the doorbell feed, and you couldn't see the garage from the camera. My parents soon got cameras for the rest of the house to make sure if something happened, we knew what it was. After my parents had all the cameras installed, nothing happened again until, conveniently, the cameras had gone flat, and my parents hadn't charged them in a few weeks, simply just forgetting to. I had been left home alone again. My family wasn't getting back until late, but I wasn't bothered until I started hearing stuff. The first noises came from the back deck. While I can see from the window in my bedroom, the light was off, so I didn't have a good view, but I heard something get knocked over. It frightened me, but I just assumed it was an animal. Then I heard the back sliding door. Not only did I hear it slide, I heard the handle on it click. Obviously, I'm shitting myself now, but I just froze, unsure what it actually was, and then I heard footsteps again, swiftly, got up to lock my bedroom door, and I just listened. I heard the footsteps fade and the back door again, and I quickly ran out of my room to check the doors. As I was standing by the front door, I heard a noise. It was breathing. I froze in place as my heart sank, and I just listened. I didn't hear it again, and right as I was about to laugh at myself, making up noises, I heard again the breathing, but this time louder, and I could tell it was a female. Before even giving it a second thought, I ran up and slammed my door shut. I called my auntie and uncle, who lived a minute up the road, and they came over immediately, checking the house, but didn't find a thing. My parents just told me I was paranoid and scaring myself again, which I ended up believing. Until a few weeks after I'm home alone again. I was on FaceTime with a friend and had my door open when I started hearing something. I went quiet and told my friend to be quiet while I listened. We both listened, and then the sound became very clear. I could hear the bathroom door opening and closing from the draft as I left the window open, which was quite normal, but then I heard the other sound. It was the sound of a light switch, like literally sound of a light switch being flicked on and off. It wasn't like a pattern in the flicks, either sometimes a bunch would happen super quickly and then I wouldn't hear it for a few minutes, and it would happen once every minute or two. My bedroom door was being wide open, and the sound being so close scared the shit out of me, and I was just frozen. I eventually got up the courage to get up and lock and close my door. Luckily for me, after 5 minutes being locked in my room, my sister-in-law messaged me that they were about to be home. I hadn't messaged anyone in my family, knowing they'd call me paranoid, but I felt a lot better knowing people were coming home. These are some of the little things that have happened over the years. In the bedroom downstairs, we used to have photos all over the walls. However, every single morning, without fail, they would all have fallen off the wall, but standing up against the wall. Not like they've been knocked off, but rather placed. We have massive windows in the lounge room, and everyone that has slept under it had reported having a dream about a man just staring through the window, even if they had never heard the stories before about it. One night, I had fallen asleep on the couch with my dog, and he woke me up around 3 a.m. crying, and when I sat up, he walked over the hallway and growled. Then to the end of the hallway and started losing it, barking, and then came back crying and shaking. One time, me and my best friends were having a sleepover, and it was around 1 a.m. and I got up for the toilet and my sister's door was open, and I noticed a doll staring at me, and I told my best friends not to look at it too long when she went to go to the toilet, and she came back asking, "What doll?" And when I went back to look, it was just gone. These are all the main things that have stuck with me, and I'm just so confused as there is no explanation. Any thoughts on what could be happening are greatly appreciated, please. What a chilling story. I think we all know the feeling that when we're home alone, there's someone with us, or at least something watching us. The next story is a long one, so buckle up, get comfy, let's start. I think someone on Reddit is stalking me. I did not start writing on Reddit because I wanted attention. That is the lie people tell when they want to feel clean about their compulsions. I started because it was the only place where I could put down a thought and walk away without it following me home, or so I believed. At first, the routine was harmless, just a throwaway account, late nights, and the soft glow of a laptop illuminating an unmade bed. I worked a monotonous remote job and lived alone in a town built to be passed through rather than lived in. When the workday ended, the silence came on thick and heavy. Writing filled the empty space. Writing kept the walls from listening. I gravitated towards horror subreddits because they offered brutal honesty, and readers there understood dread, not that theatrical frights, but the slow creeping rot that settles deep in your chest and refuses to leave. My early posts were small observations. A man who waved every night from the edge of a cornfield, a voicemail that played rhythmic breathing only when rewound. The comments were kind of encouraging, with familiar usernames popping up to offer praise. Then I wrote The Quiet Neighbor, and the atmosphere shifted. It was a first-person story about a man whose neighbor stands in the exact same spot outside his house every night lingering just beyond the reach of the porch light, never moving, never close, but never gone. I kept the prose restrained, offering no clean explanation and letting the reader sit in the raw uncertainty. I performed exceptionally well. Front page, thousands of upvotes, and a flooded message asking if it was based on true events. Answering those messages was my first mistake. I replied casually, "Thanks, just fiction, inspired by mood, nothing more." I went to bed riding that euphoric high writers get when a piece truly connects. The next morning, a lone notification waited for me. A new comment posted at 3:12 a.m. No username, just deleted. He likes the dark between the porch light and the streets. I shrugged the notification away. It was a creepy addition, par for the course in a community where readers love to play along, but the phrase lingered like a foul smell. Not the neighbor, not a generous subject, just the familiar, utterly specific. I did not respond. The following night another comment appeared. Still deleted, with the identical cadence and calm certainty. He can see you through the screen door. The timestamp read 3:12 a.m. I blamed an insomniac troll with a flair for theatrical timing. The internet breeds them. Still, I locked my door that night. More out of ritual than genuine fear, I began cataloging the ambient sounds of the house, the refrigerator kicking into gear, the wind pressing heavy against the vinyl siding, a solitary car passing on the road out front, nothing more. A few days later, I posted a new piece, a completely different premise about a woman who hears phantom typing from an empty office down the hall. The standard praise rolled in, then buried halfway down the thread, said another comment from deleted. The typing stops when you hold your breath. Timestamped at 3:12 a.m. Cold pooled at the base of my throat. I scoured my profile, dissecting years of posts and comments. I had never shared a location, a name, or a photograph. The oppressive weight of being watched settled over me anyway. I blamed coincidence primarily because the alternative required believing the impossible. 2 weeks passed in agonizing slow motion. I tried to ignore the threats, but the compulsion always won. The comments never addressed the plot directly. Instead, they dissected my structure, my pacing, and the precise details I chose to omit. Always deleted. Always 3:12 a.m. I began sleeping with my laptop firmly closed shut. Then the power grid failed. No storm warning preceded it, and the lights did not flicker before dying. Total darkness swallowed the room. The town possessed cheap infrastructure, and all lines making blackouts common. I grabbed my phone, engaged the flashlight, and navigated the hallway to check the breaker panel. The smell hit me first. Damp earth and freshly turned soil. It had no place inside a dry house. I stood absolutely motionless in the dark. The floorboards groaned as the temperature dropped. Somewhere deep in the walls, water moved through copper pipes. I blamed the natural odors for aging foundations. When the power returned, I stepped away from the keyboard entirely. I needed space to let my racing mind settle. In the absence of news stories, the direct messages began. Private text from account with empty icons and deleted usernames. "We miss your words." I blocked the account. The platform simply replaced with another. I tested the carbon monoxide detector and swapped the batteries just to be certain. I researched paranoia symptoms and slammed the browser shut before reading the results. Then came a small detail. Something I wish I had missed in The Quiet Neighbor. I described the protagonist's house as having a cracked third step leading up to the porch. It was meant to be texture, simply atmospheric dressing. The next morning I worked outside to collect the mail. The third step of my own porch now bore a fresh jagged hairline fracture. I crouched and traced the fissure with my index finger. The concrete felt cold and entirely unremarkable. I laughed out loud at my own remarkable unraveling mind. That night at 3:12 a.m., a Singer notification awoke the dormant thread. Concrete shifts when the ground is disturbed. I stopped laughing. I began meticulously documenting everything. Dates, exact time, digital screenshots. Yet every time I rewind the files, the data had mutated. A crucial image missing, a timestamp shifted by an hour, a digital note I had no memory of drafting, written in my exact authorial voice. One entry sat alone in a blank document. He doesn't like when you check the window twice. I wiped the drive clean. The following afternoon, the latch on the bathroom window sat open. It requires a specific forceful jigger to unlock, and I checked it religiously every night. I sat on the porcelain edge of the bathtub and stared at the latch. The glass offered only a warped, pale reflection of my own face. Desperation put me back on the keyboard. I avoided fiction and posted a purely analytic essay on the mechanics of writing fear, arguing that the unknown holds more power than the explicit. It felt safe and detached. The first comment arrived almost instantly. We are not the unknown. Timestamped at 3:12 a.m. I slammed the lid down. My hands shook violently. No more rationalizing. I drafted a frantic message to the forum moderators, detailing the patterns, the exact timestamps, and the undeniable escalation. They responded with impolite sympathy, suggesting that obsessive trolls often latch onto rising creators. They advised me to step back, mute all notifications, or simply delete that account. Erasing my digital identity felt like a point mixture of grief and salvation. I hovered the cursor over the deletion prompt for 10 full minutes before I could click. One final message arrived. You cannot delete us. That was the moment the floor gave way entirely. The plural pronoun severed my last tether to logic. I deleted the account. The platform locked me out, the page refreshed, and the pseudonym vanished. The resulting silence felt clinical and wrong, much like a room stripped of furniture, where only heavy indentions remain in the carpet. I went to bed early and slept in fractured bursts. At exactly 3:12 a.m. my eyes snapped open. No noise woke me up, only the absolute certainty that the atmosphere in the house had shifted. I laid paralyzed, regulating my breathing to listen. A wet, soft rhythm resonated from just beyond the exterior wall. Not footsteps. It was slow, patient respiration pressed directly against the vinyl slidings. I refused to check the window. A scent of damp earth permeated the dry wall. By morning, barefoot impressions ruined the soil in front of the flower bed, deep, heavy, and facing the house. The responding officer took unenthusiastic notes. They asked standard questions regarding enemies, narcotic use, and occupational stress. They suggested a security camera to ease my nerves. I installed 3 that afternoon, covering the front yard, the back door, and the blind side of the house. Night fell and I sat paralyzed in the kitchen table, obsessively monitoring the live feeds on my phone. At 3:11 a.m., the perimeter remained secure. At 3:12 a.m., the front camera feed fragmented into static. When the picture stabilized a second later, A figure occupied the absolute edge of the frame. It stood far back, perfectly positioned, where the artificial light bled into dark. The resolution offered no facial details, but the unnatural stillness commanded the screen. The digital timestamp flickered once before the entire feed froze completely. The next morning, the application classified the footage between 3:12 and 3:20 as a corrupted file. I packed a single duffel bag and drove blindly to a decaying motel 2 towns over, leaving every light in the room burning bright. I promised myself the retreat was a temporary measure to regain perspective. The local wireless connection proved agonizing slow, yet at 3:12 a.m. my phone vibrated on a cheap nightstand. A push notification alerted me to a new submission. It was published under my deleted username. The title read, "The Writer Who Tried to Leave." I opened the link with trembling fingers. The prose mirrored my exact voice, matching my rhythm and my discipline restrained. Clean sentences with controlled, rough edges. The text described this exact motel room. It detailed the neon sign flickering outside the window and the lingering odor of industrial bleach and day-old tobacco. It catalogued the contents of my unpacked bag and mocked the way my hand unconsciously drifted toward the deadbolt. Then the narrative shifted. It described the tall, unmoving shape occupying the bathroom doorway just outside my peripheral vision. It detailed how the thing waited in perfect silence for the precise moment I would look up from the screen. The story ended mid-sentence. It did not turn around. Blood hammered against my ribs as I stared at the glowing screen. I kept my eyes locked forward, grabbed the keys, and ran out the door. I'm typing this manuscript from an undisclosed location. I refuse to name the city. I refuse to document the date. I no longer check the time. What a crazy story. Whether it's true or not, decide that for yourself. The next comes from a deleted user who made a thread asking, "Creepypastas are great, but does anyone have any good true creepy stories?" When I was younger, my family was extremely poor and lived in a very old mobile home on some land my grandpa owned. This piece of land was in a very small town out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and was covered in woods. The town itself was your typically small country town where football was king and there was nothing to do but get drunk or high on the weekend. It was also the type of town, along with it being early 90s, where one didn't typically have to worry too much about locking their doors or setting an alarm. Now, our trailer was a 2-bedroom, and my parents, always putting us kids ahead of themselves, slept in the living room on a fold-out couch. My room was directly connected to it, and my sister's room was down a hallway past the kitchen and bathroom at the other end of the trailer. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, my dad is woken up by a feeling that there is someone in the room. He looks around a bit and sees a large male figure sitting in the easy chair just feet from the bed. My dad quickly flipped on the light switch next to his bed and saw it was a neighbor from us down the road named Carter. Carter was known to be a frequent drug user and was often in trouble with the law for this. So my dad asked him what the fuck he was doing here and told him to get out, and he responded, "I can't get out. The demons are chasing me and your house is the only safe one." My dad, who I should say is fairly large and a terrifying person, responded that if he didn't get out quick, that the house would be a lot less safe for him. "If I leave, they'll get me. They've been chasing me all night. If they catch me, I'm dead." My dad's response was that there was no demons, but that if he didn't get the fuck out of the house, he'd be dead. From what I've been told since I was asleep for this part, my mom also hurled a few threats, and while she may not be big, she was equally as terrifying. I believe it was her anger that finally scared him off. My dad got up and locked the door and watched through the blinds as Carter decided that since he couldn't outrun the demons, it would be a good idea to steal our old Peter Suburban that my dad always left the keys in. He drove around for about an hour. We called the police and it took them about that long to get out to us, since the closest police station was about 20 to 30 minutes away. He finally brought it back and was arrested and taken to jail. He was deemed crazy and ended up locked in a mental situation. The scarier part is that for years after this, we'd get phone calls where all we'd hear is music that would have lyrics like, "I'm going to fucking kill you." These calls lasted for years and followed us from house to house, even though we always had different numbers and would even be in different states. We always thought it was him sending us a message. The call stopped when I was 12. I later found out that it was around the same time that Carter thought the best thing he could do for himself was soak himself in gasoline and set himself on fire. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you all for sticking around that long. It would really help me if you would like and subscribe the video if you liked it. And then I'd say I'll see you at the next one.